Good morning, everybody. It's nice to see all of you here. It's a gloomy day today. It really is in Vancouver, or just outside of Vancouver where I live. I forgot to push the button the first time around, or at least I thought I had pushed the button, but I didn't. C'est la vie. What are you gonna do? Good morning, everybody. I am freshly out of the shower, as you can tell. It is a gloomy day, gloomy Tuesday today, wow. So I'm feeling like it's going to be a good day to cozy on in here at home and work on these exciting spinning projects that I had started yesterday. So yesterday I started working with some rambouillet that I got at the Black Sheep Gathering in Oregon many years ago, and I have several pounds of this stuff, and it's beautifully prepared. It spins so nicely, and I was thinking, what am I going to do with all this stuff? I think when I had purchased it, the idea was to make a bunch of sweaters for myself, but now, you know, I'm looking at the time that I have and the yarn that I already have, and I think that there's a better utilization for it for me as well. And I also thought that this would be a great way for me to experiment with botanical dyeing and dyeing handspun. So that's what I'm going to do. So yesterday I spent some time just creating some little sample skeins just to get an idea of how the fiber spun up and what it was behaving like and what it looked like in a yarn. And I tried some textured yarns and I tried a finer spun yarn, and I'm going to try a few more different options today and see what I come up with. But it's a total dream to spin, so I'm very much enjoying that. A part of this process, this artistic venture of, you know, trying to sell my goods and everything, it's important to me that I don't sacrifice why I do this art in the first place, which is it brings me so much enjoyment. It really is one of those few things in my life that it fills me up with so much joy to do, and I can do it every single day and not get tired of it at all. But you know, I have found that in the past when I've tried to sell my work, I found myself feeling like I had to stick to just finding one thing that I could make and that I could make very efficiently and quickly, because in your head, you know, because you're not being paid an hourly wage, you're thinking, okay, you know, I've got to make enough stuff to one that is going to be at a sellable price, because you want to make something that's going to appeal to maybe a wider range of people, not just people who are really financially well off necessarily, and also something that's going to be the best use of your time. And having that come into your head it can limit where your creativity can go, and it's a part of, I think, of necessarily wanting to become an artist in a more professional way, is thinking about what is actually going to be sellable and what sort of prices do you want to have for the things you make. And that's been a huge challenge for me. But in this regard, with spinning, because it is such a labor-intensive process, I've learned a couple different techniques over the years to increase the time. So one of the things that I've done is I'll make singles and sell just singles. So that's a single ply yarn, which I have spun to the proper twist so that doesn't have added kink in it or anything. It's just laid nice and balanced. And then I full those singles, so I stick them in a bath of hot water and then cold water, back and forth until it has made this just very slightly felted yarn. And what that does, at least the way I've interpreted it, is it helps the fibers just bind together a little bit better. So it makes a bit of a stronger single ply, and the yarn will hopefully wear a little bit better over time too, because it's been a little bit irritated. So I think what I'm going to do with this fiber, as far as I can tell so far, has been a thicker, maybe more textured handspun, and then botanically dye those in a beautiful range of colors, and then throw those up on my website and see what happens. And I'm going to be happy to go along with you about my process for why I price things the way that I do. I know that there is a very well thought out method out there for what people think and that spinning should be priced at, and it is dependent on, you know, how fine of a spin you've done, so because that takes longer, the type of fiber that you use, whether it's a luxury fiber, it's got silk or yak or cashmere in it, and, you know, I think those are at time and your time and the cost of your materials, and then you go from there. So I've come up with something a little bit different. It does take both of those things into consideration, but I want to make handspun available to more people because it's quite a luxury item at the price range that it's at. So this is what I'm going to do for now at the beginning and see how it works for me, and hope that it does make sense, and it's going to make sense to other people, and I'm not going to make anybody else mad with the way that I want to do it. I'm not telling anyone that this is the way that you should do it, or the way that the broader handspun yarn community should do it, or that there's anything wrong with the amount that people charge for handspun. The handspun that people make is precious. It's hours and hours of people's lives that are put into this yarn, and it's unique, it's special, and you know, you should be charging whatever you are comfortable with and whatever you think you deserve from that. So yeah, I hope that my ideas are not going to rub anyone the wrong way about this, but it's just what I've come up with, and I think what's going to work for me overall. So hopefully I'm being smart about it. We'll find out. Okay. So I've just finished writing my journal for the day, and I ended up talking about stress today. I don't know if it's just the time of year, that it's the New Year's, or, you know, and everyone's made all these resolutions and put all these pressures on themselves, or because the credit card bills from Christmas have been rolling in, or what it is, but it just seems to me like this time of year is stressful on a lot of people. I see it in the people that are in my life. And so what came to my head this morning was to talk about what sort of tricks, or tips rather, we can employ when we encounter stressed out people. And it's not this big long, I didn't go into a big long spiel about it. I'm not a psychologist or anything like that, but I'm just a person who experiences stress sometimes and has thought a little bit about how I would like to be treated, and also thought about how I treat other people when I encounter people who are going through a bit of a rough time. It's hard. It's hard to always keep a level head, and I think that is probably the most important thing to do when you yourself are stressed, or you meet someone else who's stressed. So I just went into a little bit more detail about it. Not into like a book length, obviously. I only have an hour. I have a book on my bookshelf that's actually titled How to Have Difficult Conversations with Difficult People. It had some helpful ideas in it, that's for sure. But I just put a few things about what I thought might be useful and helpful. So this is what I mean about my journals. Really can be super random. They can go into anything, and it's just me trying to figure out for myself what things mean and how to best handle situations. And I know that writing something on a page is very different than enacting it in life, but I'm hopeful that just by thinking about it a little bit ahead of time and communicating it a little bit on paper, that I will be better able to handle a situation when it arises. So I hope you'll go give it a read if you feel like it. artifactsofappreciation.com. It's going to take me a long time to get used to this whole feeling like I'm marketing myself thing, but that's why I like these videos a lot better. Letting people get to know me this way rather than, it's hard to put little headlines and short little blips, saying, come now, look at this, look at me. It feels really weird, really awkward. But I know it's one of the things that I'm going to have to get used to if I want people to find out about me. And I'm going to find my own little way to do it. So that makes me feel a little bit better. So I'm just going to take a little bit of a break. I've got more computer work to do today, but I need to rest my eyes in between hours of computer. I don't know if it's maybe my posture or just the way the lights feel on my eyes, or it has something to do with my neurological condition, but I find that after a while of being, or too long of being on computer, I feel like I get head pain and my thoughts just sometimes become a little bit, they feel almost scrambled sometimes. So that's no fun. So I've been trying to find a way to be able to spend the time on the computer that I need to spend and still feel good. So I've just discovered that taking a few minutes here and there to just do a few rows on a project. I'm still working away on a sock here. Trying to use up my sock yarn stash. And yeah, that seems to help. So yeah. Gotta have all your tools ready. This is one of them that I'm using. I'm just gonna stick that down here for a little bit later on. It's still taking me a little bit of time to feel totally natural having a camera and talking to it while I'm doing things, because most of the time, obviously, I'm quite quiet in what I'm doing because I'm at home, or my work is requiring a lot of focus, and I quite enjoy the quiet and being able to get very highly focused on the things that I'm doing and not having too many distractions around. I will usually have some sort of educational something or other, or something from YouTube or a documentary, or there are different podcasts that I follow, and some of those are Fibre podcasts as well. I have a few favorites. I have a lot of favorites, honestly. I admire anyone who podcasts, but it's nice when you find, because so many more people are podcasting, it's also nice when you can find people that you can really relate to. And seeing that there are so many knitters out there with so many different styles and tastes, and is so great. And so I do have a few that I find so inspiring, because they just seem to be on the same wavelength as me. And I will put a list of the ones that I like down in the description right now, and just please know that is a very shortened list, because it was very hard for me to decide what to put down there, because I think I've watched just about every single podcast that is out there for textiles, and I love all of them. I love each of those women, just getting to see the projects they're working on, and there's a few guys that are doing it now too, and I just love it. And it's fun to be adding my voice to the mix as well now too. So I'm making a bit of a bigger sample for this one, because I think I found one of the ways that I want to spin this yarn for sale. And because it is such a beautiful wool, I am going to be making a bit of a finer gauge yarn, just because honestly I want to try and savor this fiber as much as I possibly can. It's so luxurious, it really is. I wish I could tell you guys the vendor of it, and I'm so sorry that I can't, because I wish all of you spinners could try this. But I will be making it available in my shop, and I think I will be doing one that's a finer gauge, and then I will be doing something that's a bulkier, more fun, textured yarn as well. And I can put that at a bit of a lower price range. I thought that right now I would just take this time to talk to you about pricing. And I am sorry that if these long style of talking isn't your cup of tea, and you are someone here who's just here to see projects and see the knitting and see the work. I will make sure that I have finished object videos where I show you just those, and so if you're only interested in watching that, I totally understand. I understand the thrill of wanting just to be inspired by what people have already made, and maybe hearing about the process of things may not interest you as much, but I've always been someone who's a behind the scenes sort of person. That was one of my favorite things about getting a DVD back in the day when we got DVDs, was watching the special features and hearing a little bit more of the reasons why things were made the way they were made. So I'm going to talk a little bit about pricing. There is a calculation that someone has put together where you charge per yard. And I can't remember exactly what the amount is. I will try and find it and include a link to it in the description with handspun. So this is a person who's taken the time to rationalize and calculate things like minimum wage and tried to come up with a sort of a baseline for people who want to sell their handspun at. Because if you go look on Etsy, you will see that there's all sorts of handspun on there, and it's at a huge different of price range. Some of it is up there for, $75 a skein, and some of it's up there for $30, the cost of any sort of regular hand-dyed yarn. And I can understand that might be kind of confusing as a consumer, and fairly frustrating also for spinners as well, who are trying to make a living off their spinning and are trying to get a fair wage for their work. I have to admit right out of the gate that when I was selling my handspun at farmers markets, I had it set quite low. And the reason being for me was I wasn't spinning to try and put food on the table at that time. I was doing it because I just wanted to keep spinning, and I wanted to make some money just to fuel my ability to buy more fiber. And I loved spinning with hand-dyed fiber, and at that point in time I hadn't taught myself how to dye or anything like that yet, so that can be a bit of a pricey thing. Hand-dyed fiber is not cheap. So I was selling things for just a little over the cost, really, of what I paid for the fiber, and not taking into account my time, which means people were really getting a deal on my yarns. And now, as I'm trying to consider this to be something that can maybe put some food on the table, and I have to kind of reevaluate that a little bit more, and maybe reconsider this person's calculation that they've done. So I have taken into consideration the cost of my goods, so the bare cost of the fiber, and I don't think about the cost of the wheel necessarily, because this is a work and play device, and been thinking a lot about how much I would like to charge for hand-dyed, hand-spun yarn. And let's say that I'm spinning a sport to DK, so like I get 300 meters out of 100 grams. And I'm spinning with this USA grown Rambouillet, which I know, even though I don't remember the vendor, it was not inexpensive. It was still a decent amount for it, so I'm taking that into consideration. And I'm thinking about the time that I'm spending to do this, which will take many, many hours. You can see this is about the rate at which I spin. I can spin faster than this, but because I'm talking and I'm trying to make sure I'm just keeping things even and nice, I am going a little bit slower. So the price that I've come up to at this point is $50, which is a lot, and I know that. A part of me thinks that $45, it might be a better one to price it at. I said earlier that I would very much like to get handspun in the hands of more people. I think it's a beautiful, meaningful yarn, and it's so unique in the way it looks. I took a walk through Michael's a little while ago and was looking at all the different yarns there, and I'm just amazed at how much variety there is in yarn, and that you can get a beautiful looking skein that almost looks like handspun yarn for $12. Now mind you, it's made of acrylic, and it's made in God knows what factory, God knows where, but it's beautiful stuff. And a part of me felt discouraged by seeing that, by knowing that machines are able to do things that used to be so unique to us. But I have this idea, and I don't know if it's a good idea or what sort of logic it's necessarily based in, but when I touch things, when I get to know something a little bit strange about me, when I touch something, especially when it's something that's handmade, and even when it's something that's not, I get a certain feeling from that thing, a certain emotion kind of comes up. And when I touch something that's handmade from start to finish, I am just filled with this elation, this joy, this happiness, this satisfaction, and that thing feels like a treasure to me. And I get a sort of almost a visceral reaction to it. And I get a reaction when I touch things that are made coming out of countries where people are getting so little for what they're doing, and their companies are using materials that are not thought through and maybe don't have as much consideration for the environment, or are not considering the life cycle of a product. I get a feeling from that as well, and it's not as warm and fuzzy of a feeling at all. Now, I know that there are people in the handmaking community who are of the same sort of sounding mindset too, who maybe don't think as much about what they're doing and everything. So it's everywhere you go, but I guess all I'm trying to say is that I think that the things that we use affect us more deeply than we know. And maybe this is me just trying to rationalize why I've spent the money that I've spent on pricier yarns and things like that. I don't know. That could be true. But maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't. Maybe I just sound like I'm totally out to lunch on this one. So I'm trying to find an in-between place, really, is what I'm trying to say about pricing for this. I want to make something that's going to be affordable. It's definitely going to be a treat. I know that, I know what the average skein of yarn costs these days, and it goes from anywhere from $15 to $35, and $35 is on the higher end for most of us, I think. So I'm trying to find something, and if you have a better idea of what I could be doing or anything like that, I hope that you will drop me a line and just let me know what your feelings are about this and what I'm doing. And if you strongly disagree with this, the way I've come up with this and the number that I've come up with, that's totally okay. I respect people who have set their time to be very valuable and charge accordingly for that. I understand absolutely the reasoning for that. People have families, they have bills to pay just like we all do, and They're trying to keep an ancient art form alive. So, you know, we should do our best to reward that, I think. But I'm just trying to find what works for me and what makes sense for me, and go from there. I'm not trying to undercut anyone or anything like that, or speak badly or poorly of anyone. I have full respect for those people and for the work they do, and I hope that me wanting to set my prices a little bit lower to make handspun a little bit more accessible, reachable, that will be okay. You know, at the end of the day, it is my time. So, you know, how much does that really affect anyone else, I guess? Alright, so I think I've got enough on here for me to make a bit of a bigger sample. This isn't really something that I do most of the time when I spin. This is just something that I do for when I'm doing a sample and I have to get it quickly off the bobbin and just quickly check out how the yarn looks. I'm going to wind it off onto this ball winder and then take both the ends and then use those to ply. Normally what I will do is I will wind the yarn off the bobbin and I will make a ply ball, and so I'll have multiple ply balls that I will then ply from. So the reason that I take that extra time to wind it off the bobbin is I think a nice way to let the twist even out a little bit more as you are winding it off and onto this ball, and letting it rest on that ball for a day or two seems to help make a really nicely well balanced yarn. And I've heard someone mention before too that when you, I don't know how much accuracy there is to this, that you make a smoother yarn when you wind the yarn off onto a ply ball and then ply it back that direction rather than taking it right from your bobbin and then plying it straight from there. So I don't know. It's been hard for me to tell honestly when I've done it, but it's just a habit I've gotten into of making these ply balls, and it also just keeps my bobbins free. And I don't have a lot of those. I know some people have those tapestry bobbins that they can wind their work off of and use those, but I don't have those. I just went to the dollar store and bought cat toy balls. But it works for me. Give it a try. Let me know if you notice any sort of difference with making the ply ball rather than plying right from the bobbin. Okay, so now I'm going to awkwardly put that there. And I like to leave the tension on for this. It just helps the yarn stick keep from, oh dear, I forget how to do this. I like to keep the tension on while I'm doing this, just so that it keeps the strand from getting kinked back on itself, because I want to make sure that this just stays nice and even on here. So I'm hoping to make about a DK weight yarn with this. I think in some places it might be a little bit thicker than that from when I was fooling around with this last night, but I'm just trying to get a better idea, a better sense of how I want this yarn to look and how tightly I want it spun or how tightly I want it plied. There's a lot of words, technical words and technicalities for things like twist and for ply. You know, there's different angles and a bunch of, you know, wraps per inch and all sorts of things that spinners use. And if you want to become a master spinner, you have to know all of these different terms and techniques that will create in the end a different yarn each time. So, but I'm not as familiar with those terms, and I just know what kind of yarns that I like, and I know I've learned over the years the techniques that I need to make those yarns. I like a more lofty yarn, something that's not as tightly spun and a little bit more tightly plied, because I like the way the finished garments feel. They're usually so nice and light, and they're usually quite warm because of the added the added air that's in the yarns from having spun them a little bit looser. So I will just take that. Oh, that's on there really tight. I'll just take that off, having both my ends there. Make sure that doesn't all come spilling out. Yeah, have my little cake. Okay, so here's my little cake here. And I'll be plying from these two pieces right here. So one's coming from the inside and one's coming from the outside. Now there's nothing wrong with this technique. Just doing it this way, I know that it's quite an efficient way to use your yarn actually. Or use up your fiber when you're spinning. And that way if you don't have many bobbins, or maybe you only have one bobbin, you can just ply. Oop, I think I don't have quite enough tension on here. You can just ply straight from there. And use up all of your yarn. But there are some spinners who think that it kind of alters the structure of the yarn a little bit doing it this way. I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing. You still get a yarn at the end of it. So it's just up to you. I'm of the opinion that just do what makes you happy. If you're just doing this for fun and you just want to make your own yarns, do whatever works. It's all good. So I'm trying to put a little bit more twist. So I think I'm doing about, I count how many times I'm pushing the wheel. I'm doing about 7, and that's what I'm liking the look of. 7, letting the wheel go around 7 times. You can see I'm very exact in my spinning. And this yarn is coming out a bit textured, which is perfect. I think that having a little bit of the texture in there is going to really add to the feel, the natural feel of the botanical dyes. The botanical dyes will add. Alright, so I'm going to keep doing this and then I will show you once it's finished. Just trying to get it to focus there. There we go. So there you go. There's the finished yarn. It's very nice and squishy. A lot of bounce to it, a lot of air. I wanted the yarn to be quite lofty and airy. And not a lot of twist put into it so that it would have this really good squish factor. I wish you could touch it, but I'll touch it for you. It's beautiful. Just a little bit of texture so it's not perfectly even, but I think that's going to look so nice dyed in some nice plant dyes. So I've got my hand spun yarns from the past couple days here. So these two here are the ones that I did yesterday, actually that one as well. And this one, I'll just quickly go through them, is a very thick and thin style yarn. So I made this one with a sort of a whimsical style, just seeing how the yarn would play and just letting it go into the wheel however I kind of felt like. And it made a very, very beautiful, fun sort of yarn. And it's so squishy and soft, and there's some parts of it that are really, really puffy and fluffy looking. And this one here is a similar sort of idea. I did a thick and thin strand, and then I did a ply that was more fine, so it kind of would wrap around and make some fun textures in there. And yeah, I love how lively that one turned out. I think these two, for what they are, being a more lofty style with a lot of these more unspun bits, things like cowls and hats and less hard wearing items than hats than mitts and socks, that's good for that. And then this one here, I will say that this sort of yarn, I'm a true sucker for it. I love more fine gauge yarns that are very lofty. I think they're so pretty when they're knit up, and yeah, but they take a lot of time to spin, so they don't really exactly fit this sort of project, which is to try and make some handspun that's going to be a little bit more in a reachable price range for some people. And this here, I think, ladies and gentlemen, is the winner. That was the one that I just showed you that I made today. It's still a bit of a textured yarn, but it's still got that loftiness to it. It's a little bit more tightly plied, so it'll be a little bit more durable. And I just think it's beautiful. It was a pleasure to do. It came up to be about a worsted, I would say, actually, which is nice. And I'm happy with that. So squishy, so soft. This rambouillet really is a great one. So that's it. I think that this is the one I'm going to be working on for the next couple of days. So it's going to be a lot of boring white for a little while, but I'll try not to make the filming too boring. Okay, I think I do need to put on a little bit of light now, because this is just what I'm going to have to work with today. This is where I'm at today. Oh well. So that's about it for today of what I have got to show you. Now you know my plan for the next little while is to make that handspun yarn and work on getting that dyed up. And besides that, I just have some work commitments that I'm still working on, so I've got to give my time to that, so I don't really have as much time to do any more today. But I hope that you will have enjoyed what I had to show you today, and that you are liking what I've put out so far. I only have, I think the most is 12 views on one of my videos right now, but I'm not letting that discourage me. As long as I think I find this enjoyable to do, I'm going to keep on doing it no matter if anybody watches except my mom. Hey Mom. So it's all good with me, and I just hope that at some point whoever finds this, that if you're an aspiring artist and you're thinking about taking the plunge, that you just go for it. I know it's tough, and I in my life have, the feedback that I've gotten about being an artist has not always been the most positive. But you never know what might happen if you put yourself out there and you're willing to talk a little bit more about what you're doing and why, and to share with people a little bit about where your heart's coming from about things, and you just never know what can happen. So I'm just going to keep on doing this and documenting this year, because that's the commitment that I've given myself, is that I'd like to do this for a year and just see what could become of it, if anything at all. If anything, I will just have gotten a really good record of my crafting life, and yeah, and hopefully also just be able to encourage myself about the progress that I've made in life and with my health and all of that. So thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to talking to you next time. Okay, take care. Everyone's had this problem, right? Where you lose your stitch markers or your darning needles and you realize how dirty your floor is. Oh, there it is.